Here is something nobody mentions when they talk about the Master Chief. He is, by almost every narrative metric, one of the least emotionally expressive protagonists in the history of video games. He doesn't have an arc, in the traditional sense. He doesn't grow, doesn't change, doesn't question himself. He is given a mission, and he completes it. He is given another mission, and he completes that too. Every game, without fail, without doubt, without a single moment where you genuinely wonder if he's going to be okay. And yet, Halo is one of the most beloved franchises in gaming history. Master Chief is one of the most recognizable characters in all of fiction. Grown men who will comfortably tell you that they don't get emotional about video games will describe what happens at the end of Halo 3 and go quiet.
Wake me when you need me.
That shouldn't make sense. The most emotionally resonant gaming character of his generation is a man in a helmet who never takes it off, who speaks in clipped, mission-critical sentences, who has expressed more warmth toward a piece of military hardware than toward any human being in a decade of games. So what is actually happening here? Because the answer is not just good gameplay. The answer is something the audience has been feeling since 2001 and has never fully put into words. And it starts not with the soldier, it starts with this 6-year-old boy they took him from. Good evening. Coming to you from my library, where tonight's case file is about a man whose face you've never seen, and somehow feel like you know better than most people you've actually met. In the year 2517, a 6-year-old boy named John lived with his mother and father in Elysium City on the calling world of Spartan-II. He had brown hair, freckles, and a small gap between his teeth. The one memory he retained of his mother years later was that she kind of smelled of soap. That same year, Dr. Catherine Halsey came to study him. She assessed his physicality, his intellect, his instincts. Then she selected him. And then she had him taken. John and 74 other 6-year-old children were covertly kidnapped from their homes. To prevent their families from knowing, each child was replaced with a flash clone, an exact biological duplicate that would die within a year from neurological degradation. The parents grieved their children, but the real children were already gone. John was taken to the planet Reach, given a number, 117, and told that the people standing in the room with him were his new family. For the next 8 years, he was trained, conditioned, and rebuilt from the foundation up. At 14, he and the other candidates underwent dangerous physical augmentation. 30 of them didn't survive, and 12 were permanently disabled. John survived. Of course he did. So here's what the UNSC got. The most effective combat soldier in human history. A man capable of outlasting armies and could fall from space and survive. Here's what John got. Almost no memory of his childhood. No last name, no family, no identity outside the mission, and perhaps one memory of his mother.
Mr. Chief, while we acknowledge you were kidnapped as a child, surgically modified, deployed across the galaxy, and forced to fight extinction-level threats, we cannot confirm your emotional damage is service-related.
3,000 years before the Master Chief existed, Homer gave us the Iliad, and embedded inside it was a concept that historians and scholars have studied for centuries, the Aristeia. In Greek epic poetry, the Aristeia is the moment when a warrior reaches his peak, when the battle narrows to a single person, and that person becomes briefly invincible. Achilles had his Aristeia, Diomedes had his, even Hector of Troy had his. The Aristeia is the point where a hero transcends human limitations and exists purely as an instrument of excellence. It is also, crucially, temporary. Every Greek hero eventually comes down from the peak, returns to being a person with grief, doubt, and mortality. The Aristeia ends, but the Master Chief's Aristeia never ends. He lives there permanently. Every mission is the peak. Every engagement is the moment of maximum excellence. The game never asks him to come down from it because the game never needs him to be a person. That's not just a narrative choice, that's the fantasy. The specific, deeply human fantasy of having your purpose so clearly defined that identity becomes irrelevant. You are no longer a person with competing desires, unclear directions, and the nagging sense that you might be wasting your life. You are a soldier. The mission is your purpose, and the mission never ends. For most people who finds the ambiguity of regular life genuinely uncomfortable, that is not a tragedy, that's liberation. And that is the first thing this case file is about. Not the soldier, the relief of not having to be anything else.
Hold on, Winston. Serious question. How does Master Chief use the bathroom in that suit?
You promised you weren't gonna make Paramount jokes.
What? Me wasn't gonna say nothing about Master Cheeks.
You were absolutely gonna say Master Cheeks.
Fine. But you keep saying Aristea like it's some ancient Greek laxative. If the man's Aristea never ends, then what else not ending in that armor?
Well, I don't think the viewers want to.
We've all had those spine-tingling Aristeas, Winston, especially after Starbucks or Arby's. So me is wondering, what is happening in there? Colostomy bag? Filtration system? Darth Vader plumbing? Does Cortana get a warning light?
I'm sure people are not asking those questions, the same way they're not wondering how you release your waste.
Well, that's easy. I do it right here on the table, of course.
Master Chief has earned every major service medal the UNSC issues. Everyone except the Prisoner of War medallion. That specific exception exists because Master Chief has never been captured.
Except when the grave mine got him in Halo 2.
He is the person you call when there is no one else to call. And that specific promise of the Halo trilogy is that he will answer, that he will handle it, and that you never need to wonder what it's costing him because he doesn't show you. Now compare that to Steve Rogers. Captain America volunteered for the Super Soldier program. He was a 90-pound asthmatic from Brooklyn who kept showing up to enlist despite being rejected. He chose this. He walked into Abraham Erskine's lab knowing what it would do to his body, knowing what it would make him, and he chose to do it because he believed in something worth fighting for.
The strong man who has known power all his life may lose respect for that power, but a weak man knows the value of strength and knows compassion.
That choice is the entire moral architecture of the character. Everything Captain America does carries the weight of a man who decided, who had values before he had the body to enforce them, whose identity existed before the shield. John 117 had no such moment. He was 6 years old. He did not choose the mission. He did not choose the armor. He did not choose the number that replaced his name. The competence was installed in him the same way a weapon is manufactured, not through conviction, but through process.
Steve Rogers became a symbol because he chose to be. John 117 became a symbol because somebody else decided he would be. Same armor, same excellence, completely different man underneath, man.
And yet the audience responds to the both of them. Here's why that's worth examining. The Captain America fantasy is about moral conviction expressed through physical power. You believe in something, you're willing to pay whatever price that belief costs. The fantasy is about integrity. The Master Chief's fantasy is different, quieter, and for a specific demographic, more resonant. It is the fantasy of being the most useful person in any room without being asked to explain yourself, justify yourself, or perform any identity beyond the function. Just the absolute certainty that when something needs doing, you are the person who can do it, and the world will organize itself around that fact. Men are culturally conditioned to measure their worth through usefulness, through what they can provide, through what they can do, not through who they are, but through what they are for. Master Chief is the cleanest possible expression of that conditioning taken to its logical extreme. He is nothing but what he is for, and millions of people put on that helmet and feel, for a few hours, what it would be like to have that be enough. That's the second thing this case file is about, not the soldier, but the specific exhaustion of being a person, and the fantasy of just being a function instead.
They let me pick. Did I ever tell you that? Choose whichever Spartan I wanted. You know me. I did my research, watched as you became the soldier we needed you to be. Like the others, you were strong and swift and brave. a natural leader. But you had something they didn't. Something no one saw but me. Can you guess? Luck.
Cortana was created from a flash clone copy of Dr. Catherine Halsey's brain, the same woman who selected John and had him taken from his family and conscripted into a program that spent the next decade turning him into a weapon. Cortana is, in the most literal possible sense, the mind of the person who made him what he is, running inside his armor, living in his head, and she chose him. When Dr. Halsey gave Cortana the freedom to select which Spartan to bond with, Cortana picked John. Not because she was ordered to, but because she assessed the candidates and decided he was her best match. Think carefully about what that means to a person who has spent his entire life being assigned rather than chosen. Every relationship John has ever had was a product of the program. His fellow Spartans, family by conscription, his commanding officers, authority by rank, the Marines he fights alongside, colleagues by deployment order. None of them chose him. None of them know him. The helmet stays on, and the man underneath stays invisible. Cortana is different. She lives in his neural interface. She processes his biometric data, his stress response, his physical conditioning in real time. She is, quite literally, the only presence in John's life that knows what is happening inside the armor. And she stays. She talks to him. Not in mission briefings. She talks to him. She jokes with him. She worries about him. She argues with him. She is the only relationship in his entire life that exists outside the transactional framework of military service. Robert Louis Stevenson understood something about this in 1886. In The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Jekyll creates a chemical formula specifically to separate his public self from everything he needs to hide. The respectable doctor and the creature underneath, the performance and the truth. What's interesting is that this is the exact architecture Master Chief runs on, but it's inverted. Jekyll had a private self he was trying to hide from the world. Chief has no private self left. It was taken at 6, and what the world sees is all there is, except for what Cortana sees. She is the only witness to what exists underneath the armor, not because Chief performed vulnerability for her, but because she is the only relationship in his life that doesn't require their performance. And that specific configuration is the third and deepest layer of why this character resonates the way he does with the audience, particularly with men. Men are conditioned in ways both cultural and deeply personal to keep the armor on, to perform competence and capability and emotional self-sufficiency as the primary mode of existing in the world. The idea of being known, genuinely, completely known by someone who isn't asking you to perform, is not presented to most men as an available experience. It's presented as a weakness to be managed. The fantasy of Cortana is the fantasy of the exception, the one relationship where the armor comes off, not because someone demanded it, and not because a situation forced it, but because there's finally someone safe enough to take it off around. And she chose you first, because you earned it, because you proved it. Before the mission, she just picked you.
Hold on, Winston. Let me wrap me empty skull around this. The woman who kidnapped him as a child made a younger, hotter computer ghost of herself, shoved it into his helmet, and somehow that became the most emotionally healthy relationship the man ever had.
Well, when you put it that way,
Winston, that is just Stockholm Syndrome with Bluetooth.
Master Chief is only ever called by his real name once in the entire original trilogy. Once. By Cortana. In the final moments of Halo 3, when the mission is over and there is nothing left to accomplish, she says his name. Not Sierra 117, not Master Chief, John. And then she is gone. 343 continues the story with Halo 4, 5, and 6. Cortana returns and is corrupted. New threats emerge and new missions begin. But most fans would tell you something went wrong in those sequels, that the specific weight of what made the original trilogy resonate didn't survive. They are right, but the thing that broke wasn't the story, it was a relationship. Because without Cortana as the one safe presence, the one relationship that existed outside the armor, the one voice that knew his name, Master Chief is just the era style that never ends. Excellence, permanent, and completely alone. Here's what this investigation actually uncovers. Not 3 fantasies, 1 wound, wearing 3 different faces. The fantasy of liberation from identity. The fantasy of worth without justification. The fantasy of being known by someone who chose you first. 3 different ways of saying the same thing. I didn't have to earn this. I didn't have to explain this. Someone saw what was underneath before I proved I deserved to be seen. That is not a video game fantasy. That's the thing a 6-year-old boy needed from the people who took him and never got. And here's what should stay with you. Millions of people have played as Master Chief. Millions of people have put on the helmet, run those missions, saved the world, and felt something they couldn't name when it was over. Most of them would tell you it's because the game is good, because the story is compelling, because the world building is rich. They're not wrong, but underneath all of that, underneath the gameplay and the lore and the iconic aesthetic of the green armor against the stars, there was a child, taken at 6, told that the mission is who you are, that usefulness is the same as worth, that the armor stays on because the person underneath was never the point. And the audience plays as that child for 10 hours and feels, somewhere they don't examine too closely, what it would be like to finally be enough. Not because you finished the mission, just because you showed up. The helmet never comes off. We never see his face because we don't need to. Because the audience already knows what's under there. A boy who remembered his mother was kind, who smelled of soap, and who spent 30 years being the most useful person in any room he walked into, and only ever let one person see what that cost. But these are just my observations.
Me still don't understand why you was acting so scandalized by the bathroom question mark.
Oh boy, here we go again.
Everybody gotta eat. Everybody do the boom boom. Everybody make poo poo. Everybody gotta go night night forever one day. But the moment you say it out loud, everybody act like you summoning the devil in church.
If this investigation gave you something worth carrying out of this library, consider subscribing. Every file we open is another question fiction has been trying to answer about us that we aren't quite ready to hear. And if the man who kept his armor on his entire life resonated with you, there is another case file waiting. A god of war who spent centuries being the most dangerous thing alive, who then had a son and had to figure out for the first time whether there was anything worth keeping under the armor. That case file is on Kratos. Until we meet again, my library will remain open.